Have you seen Dune 2?
I have not. I heard it's awesome.
Amazing. Frank Herbert was a friend of mine who wrote Dune. Frank Herbert lived in Port Townsend, Washington. And Frank Herbert came to visit me. And Frank told me he was growing chanterelles in Christmas trees that were just 5 years old. I go, that's impossible. I said, how are you doing that? And he goes, well, I take chanterelles and I put them into water and I pour it at the base of the trees and it comes up. So there's the blue juice. And so if you take Psilocybe cubensis or any psilocybin mushroom that's potent, you put it into water, you create blue juice. And this is in Dune 2 where they drink it. And so I asked Frank, the eyes are blue. The Ben Gesserit are these shamanic women who have this high ascended cult. Is it based on Maria Sabina? I said, and maggots grow through mushrooms. And I said, everything, the spice seems like it's spores and your blue eyes and this blue juice. And he goes, you're the first person that's noticed this.
Oh, wow.
And he said he was tripping on psilocybin mushrooms. He was laying on his deck and he saw worms coming out of the mushrooms that he ate, the psilocybin mushrooms. And that was the dawn of the idea.
Wow.
Now, this is absolutely true. And I haven't met, Frank Herbert's son. I really want to meet him to tell him this because he did say something about, I think he had two sons. My memory's foggy on this. But he said, I'm keeping this secret from my sons. And I said, why? He goes, well, they're illegal. And they're just at the age right now that I don't want them to tell other people about this.
Oh, no.
So, but it all makes perfect sense. The spice, the spores, the blue juice from the blue juice you saw that was made there.
Yeah.
It all ties together. And look at that beautiful color. Okay, so this is from the Church of Ambrosia. I think David Hodges. And this is Psilocybe cubensis on the right, and this is Psilocybe azurescens on the left. And psilocybin is a prodrug for psilocin. Psilocin degrades enzymatically into indigo, the indigo molecule complex. Mm-hmm. And it's actually reversible, though haven't seen it happen, but theoretically it's reversible. But this is the blue juice. And so, we discovered this. Several people discovered this independently. Well, would the Egyptians discover it? Yes. Would the Mazatecs and the Aztecs and the Mayans discover this? Yes. This is very simple. You put the mushrooms into water, and it elutes into the water the next day, and you end up with this potent blue psilocybin-packed elixir. And so this also speaks that, I think people all over the world, when they are experimenting, they're inspired, and they know this is a sacred substance. How do we preserve it? How do we protect it? Oh, you put honey with it. Well, honey is antibacterial. And in the 1516, the Bavarian Beer Act banned mushrooms. That's interesting. They banned mushrooms from beer because mushrooms are being added, along with henbane and other plants, to make these narcotic elixirs and, meads, honey beer. So, don't underestimate the creativity and innovation of any people living long enough in their ecosystem, interacting, experimenting, making mistakes, making successes, building.
For thousands of years.
For thousands of years.
Yeah.
We should not be intellectually myopic, which I think is another problem with the hubris of science.
Well, it's also a problem with this whole drug schedule thing. Yeah. Because when it's Schedule 1, even talking about it openly opens you to criticism and ridicule, especially if you've been involved in academia for decades, right? So you started your career and your mindset towards these substances at a time where it was very detrimental to your reputation to be pursuing these things.
Absolutely. That's why as much criticism as Timothy Leary and Ram Dass gets, and even Andy Weil, they were all incredibly courageous. No one more courageous, however, than Maria Sabina, who opened up the Mazatec tradition, and also Valentina Wasson. R. Gordon Wasson's wife was a Russian physician who was also a mycologist. The difference and the similarity, and we owe a debt of gratitude to Maria Sabina and the Mazatecs and to Valentina Wasson, who died in 1958. But she grew up in Russia. She knew how to identify mushrooms. These are not people just taking psilocybin mushrooms. They knew how to go out into the fields. And Tina Watson's, she knew the Russian names. They wrote a book, Mushrooms, Russia and History. It was going to be a cookbook of 500 recipes, and it became this great ethnomycological, exploration. But these courageous women were not only medicine women, they were field mycologists who could go out into nature and find them. I have a DEA license now, and I passed my background checks. Yay!
I guess they have listened to your podcast.
I'm very serious about this. I had one also in the 70s and 80s, and my father at the end of his life asked me to trip with him on psilocybin. I turned him down. Alexander Smith, who wrote a monograph on the genus Psilocybe, the father of American mycology, one of the greatest mycologists ever, who's published many new species of psilocybin mushrooms. In 1979, 78, in Aspen, Colorado, it's actually Snowmass, he asked me to trip with him on psilocybin mushrooms. Here's like having your hero, elder, saying, I trust you, I want a journey, I've read all about it. Will you trip with me? Both of them asked me, and I asked their wives the same question. Will you journey with me and with him? And both of their wives said no. And I said, I can't have this experience with you. In both cases, I was leaving the next day. What would I abandon them? Would they have this life-changing experience? They have all these questions, and I'm not there to talk through it. And so I adopted the policy, and I'm very strict about this. Nature provides, I don't. I mean, I am very strict. I don't feel it's ethical for me to give a psilocybin mushroom to somebody else. I'm not a therapist. I'm not I'm a mycologist. I have my own deep personal religious freedoms, and I do believe that these are sacraments, and they are part of my own personal religion. I'll stand on that. I've published on that. I believe in that. But I have no right to give it to somebody else. And I think this is really important, that we need to be adults about this. These are very potent medicines. And the rituals of the Mazateks and the Aztecs and the Mayans and so many First People, Indigenous peoples, they had the structures set up. They were honed over the centuries to how to properly administer these sacraments.